Okay, I want to ask you guys a question. Have you ever got to, say, the end of the day or even lunchtime and said to your kids, so you got a couple of kids, and said to them, what do you want for dinner? Or what do you want for lunch? And what answer do they give you? They, of course, give you different answers. And now I am not in for making more than one meal for my kids. So I guess the question is, why on earth do I ask my kids what they want for a meal when I know I'm going to get different answers? And I have had an epiphany about the reason, and that's exactly what I want to chat about today, is why we ask our kids what they want for dinner, and, like I said, why in the end we don't get the answer that we want. So for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Jennifer Cohen. I'm a pediatric dietitian and nutritionist, and also known as the fussy eating doctor. So today we are going to chat about why we insist on asking our kids what they want to eat. Now, this actually happened to me a while back, just towards the end of the year, and I posted this on Instagram because I actually showed that in the end I did make 2 different meals because they weren't too dissimilar. And I posted this and said, look, I am not into making my kids different meals, but sometimes it's okay to give them a different meal. And one of the mums on Instagram, Kayla from the Family Food Project, she's one of my mum friends on Instagram, said to me, the reason you ask your kids what they want is because you've got decision fatigue. Now let's just hold on a second. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly it. I am so fatigued sometimes at making decisions about everything. Sometimes I just want someone else to make the decision. Of course, asking a 4 and a 6-year-old, actually at the time they were 3 and 5, what they want is really not the best use of my time. But really what this has got me thinking about, is decision fatigue actually a real thing? And is it the reason why I ask my kids what they want to eat at mealtime sometimes? And is this also the reason at the moment that I'm starting to be paralyzed by the thought of having to do lunch boxes every day for my son who is about to start school? And I don't know why I'm paralyzed about this, and I think this all comes down to decision fatigue. So I was like, I wonder if this is actually a real thing. So I actually had a bit of a look at some of the research out there. Now, there's really no research about decision fatigue and meal planning and decision and fatigue and lunch boxes, but there is something called decision fatigue out there, and it really was a light bulb moment for me. And so what it is, and they've done studies about this, is that throughout the day, we as humans are making tiny little decisions throughout the day. Anywhere from what am I going to have for breakfast, to who am I going to fire at work, to, multiple choices, what clothes am I going to wear? So we're making tiny little choices throughout the day. And what they've actually found in research is that we actually start to fatigue throughout the day from these decisions. And what happens is actually leads to a reduction in willpower as well. And they've actually done studies, and there's been some interesting research about it. They actually took a couple of groups of adults who volunteered for a study, and they did these experiments where they had to make a whole lot of, one group had to make lots of decisions, and one group didn't. And then after that, they then had to each put their hand in a bucket of ice cold water with ice in it. Supposedly it's some kind of willpower research tool. And they found those people who'd had to make lots of decisions before doing the ice bucket test, their hands didn't stay in the bucket as long as those who hadn't had to make decisions. And so what this was showing was that over time, if we've made lots and lots of decisions, our willpower actually goes down. So in my head, I'm like, don't ask your kids what they want for eat, because they're not going to give you an answer that you want. But my willpower to stop myself and the words coming out had gone. And that's because as a mum or as a busy parent, we make thousands of decisions throughout the day. And by the end of the day, I don't want to make any more decisions. And what's actually really interesting is that along with this sort of willpower that, a reduction in willpower as the day goes on, your actual decisions that you make, actually you tend to go with the easiest decision, even if it's not the right one. And that's if you've ever, gone onto the internet and started buying things just because they're on sale at the end of the day. It's because you're just making the easiest decisions, so we all like sales. But we also do know that the more decisions you make throughout the day, the easier choice you want at the end of the day. And they actually did a study of judges who are looking at parole hearings. I know nothing to do with food. And they found that, oh, there goes my tripod. So they found that throughout the day, that criminals were actually less likely to get granted parole throughout the day. So it was like 60% of criminals were likely to be granted parole during in the morning. But as the day wore on, especially as it before a break, only like 10% of criminals were granted parole. And the theory was that this was because the judges end up going with the easiest option. And the easiest option is to keep them in jail. And what interestingly they found was once they'd eaten something, the number of prisoners who were granted parole went up again, and then again as the time went on, those decisions went down. So again, what has that got to do with meal times and eating? And I guess what's that showing to me is that sometimes we do make decisions because it's the easy decision when we are sick and tired of making decisions. And really, this is the reason why I'm probably paralyzed by the thought of having to make school lunches every day. Because up until now, breakfasts have been pretty simple and I meal plan for dinner. But lunches have always been a bit sort of ad hoc. And the reality is 3 days a week, I haven't had to make a decision about their lunches because that's what childcare and their grandparents have been for. But all of a sudden, for 5 days a week, or now 7 days a week, or 5 days a week for the next, 13 years or until I outsource lunch making to my child when he's old enough, I'm going to have to start making even more decisions about what my kids are going to eat. And the thought of that and the thought of having to make more decisions about that actually scares me a little bit. And if you've been on here long enough, you know that I'm a bit scared about having to do lunch boxes. So I guess what I wanted to say to you guys out there and you busy parents out there, if you ever get paralyzed by the thought of dinner, I even get paralyzed by sometimes if we're having takeaway for dinner and trying to make a decision. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to make any more decisions. So if you're wondering why you ask your kids what they want for dinner, or you can't make a decision about what to eat at the end of the day, or you're stressed about having to do lunch boxes, a lot of this has got to do with decision fatigue. And I'm here to tell you that we all probably have it as busy parents and busy mums. So that's all I really wanted to chat about today. I hope that makes you feel a little bit better. It actually makes me feel a little bit better. And then what I want to do next week is actually cover some of the things we can do to help with decision fatigue. How do we stop or reverse it, or what do we do to combat it? Because the reality is we still have to cook dinner every night. We still have to make choices about food, and I'm still going to have to make those lunch boxes. And so there's nothing I can do. And so what can I do to beat that decision fatigue? So that is what I'm going to cover next week. So tune in this time next week on Monday, and I'll chat to you about some things that you can do. But I would love to hear from you guys to see if this kind of makes sense, that you think you have decision fatigue. And it might not be about food. It might be about other things. But I would love to hear what you guys think. So in the meantime, enjoy your evening, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.